They said she wasn't breeding material. She had no legs, until a man gave her legs and got her pregnant.
The basin of Yarnith Vale was in its final state, silent, rotting, industrial bones sunk beneath cracked soil. What had once been a breadbasket of fungal harvests and water-fed grain towers had collapsed into stagnant runoffs, dead filters, and rust-choked ducts. No machines buzzed. No workers remained. Just the low hiss of wind sweeping across empty concrete causeways and the faint burble of water leaking through fractured utility pipes. It had been like this for years. Kari Inn had been dropped here 3 days ago, left beneath the shadow of a collapsed aqueduct, half buried in reeds and sludge. Her body was filthy, streaked with dried algae and dust. Her blue skin, once polished and painted for ceremonial purpose, was bruised and flaking. Her long white hair was matted to her face and back, stuck with mud and industrial oil. She hadn't moved more than a few inches. Crawling was possible, but useless. She had nowhere to go, no legs to carry her, no one waiting. She hadn't always been this way. Kari Inn was a Zyrene Allen hybrid, tall, elegant, once considered genetically ideal. Her body had been designed with exaggerated feminine strength, sensual flexibility, and neural bonding capacity. But those traits no longer mattered. After the collapse of the breeding consortiums and the disbandment of the regulated partnership programs, hybrids like her had been considered obsolete. Too specialized, too needy. When her legs were amputated after a transport crash 2 years ago, deemed unworthy of surgical priority, she was reassigned, then rejected. Traded once, then twice. By the 4th time, there were no offers. When the last man dropped her off the cart beside the aqueduct, he didn't even speak, just untied the strap, rolled her off the side, and drove away. She hadn't shouted. Her voice had already started to fade. Now, she lay in silence, wearing what remained of her ceremonial silks. They were stiff with grime, cut at the thigh, clinging to her hips and chest in slashed strips. The air stank of rust and dead plants. Her ribs showed. She hadn't eaten since the last ration cube, a dried block of algae she barely managed to chew. The only sound came from overhead, a faint crunch of gravel. Then footsteps. One person, Kari Inn tensed. Her breath caught. People pass through here sometimes, salvagers looking for scrap metal or old irrigation nodes. None of them ever stopped. She waited, listened. The steps grew closer. Not hurried, not cautious, just steady. Then a shadow fell across her. She blinked. Her eyes stung. Above her stood a man, taller than most, wiry frame, canvas coat to his knees, dirt-smeared boots, and a long thermal wrap tied across his chest. He looked down at her, face unreadable. Short dark hair, hollow eyes, 40, maybe older. His jaw was tight, beard uneven like he hadn't bothered to finish shaving. He didn't speak right away. Kari Inn stared up, not moving. He lowered himself to one knee. "You awake?" His voice was low, unforced, not loud, not aggressive. She swallowed. Her throat was dry. He tilted his head slightly. "Can you hear me?" Kari Inn managed a nod. "I'm not going to touch you," he said. "I just saw someone lying here. I didn't think anyone was alive." She studied his hands. No weapon, no scanner, no cuffs. "You want me?" she asked, her voice hoarse. He hesitated. "No, I don't want anything." She blinked again, confused. That didn't make sense. Why else would he stop? "I have nothing," she whispered. "But I can still give." "Don't." His voice was sharper now. Not angry, just firm. Final. "I'm not here for that," he added, quieter this time. Kari Inn froze. Her body stiffened. She didn't know what else to say. Every interaction in the last 2 years had been transactional. Touch for food, touch for transport, touch for silence. He stared at her legs, or rather what was left. His eyes didn't change. He wasn't disgusted, just processing. "My name's Nolan," he said. "I used to be a hydroecologist. This basin was under my watch. Years ago, I got a dome not far from here. Still working on the irrigation hub. Testing algae cycles. Trying to keep a water system going. For what? I'm not sure anymore." He looked around, rusted metal, dried sludge, rotting vines. but I still go walking the lines every few days. Habit, I guess. Kari-in swallowed again. Her mouth burned. He looked back at her. What's your name? She didn't answer right away. Kari-in, she finally said, so softly it barely made sound. Kari-in, he repeated. You're freezing. He took off his coat and leaned forward. She didn't move as he wrapped it around her shoulders, slowly, carefully. The fabric was warm from his body. It smelled like dust and water filters. Then, with no warning, he slipped one arm beneath her back and the other under her knees, or where they had been. She inhaled sharply, her hands bracing his shoulder. He lifted her as if she weighed nothing. Kari-in didn't fight. She was too weak, but panic surged inside her. Where is he taking me? What does he want? But he didn't speak again. He just started walking, down the broken access road, through the cracked canal path where weeds grew through the seams of concrete. She felt every movement, the soft sway of his body, the grit of his boot falls, the heat of his arm under her. She rested her head against his collarbone, eyes open, watching. The dome came into view, half submerged in soil and plant overgrowth, but intact. Solar panels covered the curve of its side, half broken, half active. A wind-driven water tower spun slowly on its spindle nearby. The entrance slid open with a dry groan. Inside, it was quiet, organized, prepared with care. Plastic-sealed crates stacked in one corner. A compact bed made from thermal blankets and old filtration mesh. A repurposed nutrient pump system along the wall. He'd converted what remained of the hydro lab into a livable space. He set her down on a crate near the heat vent and stepped away. Kari-in breathed, shallow. The warmth crept into her chest. Her fingers twitched. He didn't stare. He moved to the wall unit, opened a container, and returned with a foil-wrapped meal cube and a sealed hydration flask. He knelt beside her, unwrapped the food, held it out. She reached for it, hands shaking, bit into the cube, chewed slowly. He didn't speak. She ate half, then paused. Her hand hovered near her lap. She looked at him. You didn't ask what I cost, she said. He looked at her, tired eyes steady. You're not for sale. She studied his face. He meant it. There was no angle. Nolan stood and returned to the console, adjusting flow readings. Not avoiding her, just letting her be. Kari-in lowered her gaze. Her pulse was slower now. She didn't know what he was. A technician, a hermit, someone trying to fix something long past saving. But he didn't see her as broken. She didn't trust it. Not yet, but something in her chest shifted. Not relief, not comfort, just a faint realization. He might not throw me away. She stared down at her legs, scarred, gone, and then at the warm food in her lap. And for the first time in months, she didn't feel ashamed to eat. Nolan didn't ask her anything that night. After giving her food, he returned to his hydroflow monitors and worked in silence, adjusting nutrient drip rates and scanning thermal readings. Kari-in watched from where she sat near the heater, arms wrapped tight around his coat. The warmth helped, but her body was still recovering from exposure. Her lips were cracked, her joints stiff, and her core burned with a slow, deep ache. She didn't speak again, and he didn't push. The dome was quiet except for the hum of water cycling through the pump lines and the soft rattle of algae trays rocking gently in the airflow. Lines around his mouth and eyes spoke of years lived without much rest. There was a band on his wrist, worn, frayed leather, holding a water purity gauge with a cracked screen. Not a family relic, just a tool, but he wore it like a memory. Kari-in sat up slowly, careful not to slip off the crate. Her torso was still weak. No legs meant she had to shift her weight forward and brace herself with her arms. She hated the sound her body made, small grunts of exertion, awkward dragging. But he didn't flinch or stare, just kept working. You live here alone? She asked. He nodded. Since the fall. 3 years. What? He adjusted the console beside him before answering. This dome still filters water. I know how to maintain it. And I don't like the cities anymore. Too many rules. Too little trust. Kari-in stared. You don't seem like the kind of man who trusts easily. I don't. Then why did you carry me? He paused. For the first time, he turned fully to face her. You were dying, he said. I didn't think about it. I just couldn't leave you like that. She wanted to ask more, but she wasn't sure she had the right. Instead, she looked around the dome again. You built all this back up? I repaired what was left. The systems were half dead, but still responding. I've got a functioning drip line for the algae beds, nutrient rotators, and filtered water. No comms, no shields, but it's stable. Why bother? He gave a tired half shrug. Because it still works? Because I don't know what else to do. She lowered her gaze. She understood that. Too well. A silence stretched between them, quiet, but not cold. Then he spoke again. There's a med basin behind the partition. I can help you wash. If you want. Just say so. Karian didn't move at first. She blinked. Her throat clenched. He wasn't asking to touch her. He wasn't offering to bathe her. He was just giving her the choice. She nodded, small. I need to. Please. He stood and moved aside a cloth screen hanging beside a tall cabinet. Behind it, a shallow tub built from recycled storage crates sat beneath a hanging pipe. Steam gently hissed from the nozzle, clean water warmed by internal tubing. Karian pulled herself forward, sliding off the crate with care. Her palms hit the floor with a soft slap. It took effort to cross the room, arms straining, body awkward. She felt her stomach twist with embarrassment. But Nolan didn't offer to help. He just stepped back, gave her space, and walked to the opposite side of the dome. She entered the small wash area and pulled the curtain closed. For the first time in months, warm water touched her skin. It hurt, not from heat, but from sensation. Her nerves lit up. Dirt, dead skin, and dried blood washed away in thin gray streams. She scrubbed slowly, then cried without sound. When she emerged, she was wrapped in a dry cloth, hair soaked but clean. Her body trembled from effort, but her eyes were clearer. He had left fresh clothes, a loose wrap shirt and a soft sash. Practical. No symbols. No purpose but coverage and warmth. She sat again, this time lower, closer to the heater. And she felt something different. Not safe. Not yet. But human. He approached after a long while, placing a steaming cup beside her. Algae broth. Not much flavor. Better warm. She nodded. He sat across from her, quiet. You said you were a hydroecologist. What does that mean? I specialized in optimizing water flow through agricultural networks, monitoring purification cycles, balancing fungus yields. Still trying to grow things here? Trying to keep something alive. She held his eyes. You always taken broken things? His gaze didn't shift. No, just once. Karian looked down at the cup, then at her bandaged stumps. Then I guess this is the experiment. No, he said. This is a choice. She didn't reply, but she didn't offer her body again. Not that morning. Not that day. That silence, the one where nothing was demanded, lingered, and for now, it was enough. Nolan didn't ask what had happened to her legs, and Karian didn't offer the story, but the question hung between them. By the third day, she could move across the dome floor without collapsing. She still used her arms to drag herself from the heating unit to the nutrient counter and then back to the resting pad he'd assembled from folded thermal layers. Each motion was awkward, uneven, but no one was watching with judgment. Nolan worked during the daylight hours, quietly checking the algae trays, calibrating flow meters, replacing cracked filter lines with old parts he salvaged from the basin's abandoned nodes. He spoke little, but when he did, he used her name. Not as a question, not as a label, just Karian, spoken flat, clear, like it was worth saying. That was new. He kept his side of the dome functional, structured, while leaving hers untouched except for fresh water, food, and occasional cloths to change into. He never touched her without permission. He didn't ask if she needed help getting dressed. He gave her options, let her choose. Still, the silence wore on her nerves. One evening, after a long day of humid heat settling into the dome's corners, Karian broke it. You never asked why I was left there. Nolan, crouched beside a cracked valve assembly, paused, his tool in hand. I figured if you wanted to tell me, he said, you would. She pushed herself up on her hands, shifting closer to the edge of her resting pad. Most men would have asked the moment they saw what was missing. I'm not most men. That's what worries me. He turned, sitting back against the pipe system. You want to tell me? Karian exhaled slowly, chest rising and falling with tension she'd been holding for days. I was bred in a house just outside Dovar sector. I don't know which parent was Zyrene and which was Alan. They never told us. We were just trained, groomed, for the partner program. He listened, quietly, no interruptions. They spent a lot on us. Our posture, tone, expressions, fertility optimization. I got paired young. It was fine. Mechanical. No one asked what I wanted, and I didn't expect them to. She looked toward the dome's ceiling, where condensation collected in small beads above the light panel. Then my transport shuttle was hit during a riot. Not even a war. Just a stupid, desperate riot over ration distribution. The crash wasn't bad, but I was pinned. Both legs crushed. They amputated me in a cargo tent. No anesthetic. No reconstruction. The medtechs marked me non-functional. From that point, I stopped having value. Nolan didn't look away. They passed me around for a while. Storage facilities. Logistics hubs. One trader thought maybe someone would still want me if she paused, jaw clenched. If I wore the silks. But by then I couldn't walk. No one wants a woman who can't stand. Her fingers curled tightly over the floor padding. They finally dumped me near the aqueduct. Said maybe I'd still serve a purpose. I didn't. Silence. Then Nolan, still seated, rested his elbows on his knees. You're wrong. She looked at him. You're here now. You're eating. Healing. That means you serve a purpose. Karian's eyes narrowed slightly. To you. To yourself. She swallowed. She didn't know how to respond. No one had ever suggested that survival, by itself, meant worth. After a moment, she looked down at her arms. Her skin was cleaner now, but her muscles were still knotted with fatigue. Her shoulders ached. Her scars itched. You used to work with water systems. Before the fall, what happened to your partner? He blinked. That caught him. He leaned back slightly, arms crossing over his chest. She was an atmospheric surveyor, he said. Civilian contractor. We met in a resource audit team. She was better with people than I ever was. I kept the machines running. She kept us moving. What was her name? Relin. Karian nodded. Did she leave you? No. Dead. His jaw tightened. Dehydration sickness. Back when the northern wind towers failed. She didn't qualify for private recovery treatment. We tried to run a closed-loop moisture system from inside the dome. It wasn't enough. He didn't say anything for a long time after that. His voice had dropped flat. Not bitter. Just final. Karian whispered, I'm sorry. He didn't nod. Didn't say thanks. Just sat still. That night, they didn't speak again. But something between them shifted. An unseen weight pressed down, heavier than any touch. A recognition. They had both been discarded, left with parts missing, but neither had stopped existing. The next day, she found the strength to ask the question that had haunted her since he first carried her in. Why haven't you tried to fix me? He looked up from his tool rack, confused. What do you mean? My leg, she said. You're a technician. You work with systems, controls, synthetic interfaces. So why not fix me? Nolan stood slowly, wiped his hands with a cloth. Because I'm not here to rebuild you into something for someone else, he said. When you're ready, if you want something, then we talk about how. She watched him. His words didn't offer salvation. They offered agency. And that changed everything. That evening, while the dome lights dimmed with the setting sun, she pulled herself beside the workspace. Watched him adjust a microfiltration circuit. Do you think, she asked carefully, a woman without legs could walk again? Properly? He looked at her, really looked. With the right in her face, he said yes. Not as before, but not crawling either. And would she feel it? Depends how deep we connect the nerves. I want to feel it, she said. Then quieter. I want to stand again. He nodded. Then we build toward that. No timeline. No promises. Just direction. For the first time in years, Karian didn't feel like something discarded or defective. She felt like a blueprint. And for the first time, she chose what came next. The room smelled faintly of heated polysteel and sterilized resin. Nolan's tools were laid out on a cloth panel beside the workbench. 2 microdrivers, a neurointerface scanner, and a set of calibration rings, still humming faintly with static charge. He didn't speak as he worked. Karian sat nearby, arms wrapped around herself, watching every move with silent focus. He hadn't touched her yet, not since she'd said it. I want to stand again. Now it was real. Now the steps had to begin. He held up a small receiver node, about the size of his thumb, rounded, flexible. He turned to her. This is the first stage. Not prosthetics yet. Just a scan. We need to map the nerves along both stumps. Each line of feedback has to match your original motor signals, or the legs won't respond. You'll have to tolerate some sensory flashes. Maybe even pain. Karia nodded once. I want that. I want to feel what's mine again. He met her eyes, then moved forward, slowly, kneeling beside her. He gave her a full beat of silence before reaching for the edge of her wrap. May I? She unfolded it herself, exposing both legs, or what remained of them. The scars had healed, but they were deep. Long, textured ridges ran across each thigh, ending just above the knee. Some of the tissue was still discolored from old inflammation. There were no fresh wounds, but the history was visible. Nolan didn't react with shock. He only studied the shape, the position of the femoral ends, the twitch of muscle beneath the skin. His hands were steady. He applied the nodes one by one, fingertips brushing her as gently as possible, not out of fear, but out of respect for how long she'd gone without being touched in any way that wasn't transactional. Karian didn't flinch, but she felt everything. Not arousal, just sensation. Raw, exposed, human sensation. The difference between being used and being held. He worked in silence, adjusting the nodes, syncing them to a handheld neural reader. Each time a signal registered, the small display flickered with a pulsing green arc. She watched her own body respond. A phantom twitch near her thigh, a tremor at the hip. It still works, she whispered. Your body remembers more than you think, he said without looking up. She nodded. I don't. He looked up at that. I forgot what it felt like to be touched without fear, she said, not quite meeting his eyes. Nolan paused. You're not an object, Karian. I'm not fixing you. You're not broken. You're rebuilding. Her breath caught in her throat. It wasn't what he said. It was the fact that he meant it. For the rest of the afternoon, he worked through the mapping, calibrating, cross-checking each neural response with the old Allen musculoskeletal template loaded into his salvage technician pad. Her hybrid DNA wasn't fully compatible with standard systems, but he adapted, adjusting connection bands, increasing impulse tolerance, testing signal resonance with patient repetition. By late evening, she was exhausted, not from pain, but from hope. It was a feeling that used muscles she hadn't used in years. He offered her protein bar. She took it, but didn't eat right away. Instead, she asked, "Why do you know how to do this?" "You're not a prosthetic specialist." "I'm not," he said, "but I worked alongside biomech teams. After Relin died, I didn't stop studying. I didn't stop fixing what I could. It kept me from falling apart." She chewed slowly, then swallowed. "So I'm another thing to fix?" He shook his head. "No, you're the first person who ever asked me to help." That landed deeper than she expected. She looked at him again, closer this time, noticing the quiet damage in his posture, the guarded way he avoided touch himself. He was gentle with her, but rough with himself. That night, she didn't retreat to her corner of the dome. She stayed closer to his workstation, wrapped in a blanket, just outside the dim light of the center lamp, watching him finish his calibrations. "You said something yesterday," she murmured, voice soft in the dark, "that I have to want this for myself." "I did. I do." He turned slightly. "That's why it's working." Then came silence again, but it wasn't empty. The dome was quiet. Outside, wind rolled across the basin, hissing through broken pipes and shattered ducts. But inside, warm, dry, and lit with gentle amber light, there was only the sound of breathing, hers and his. She finally lay down. Her body settled into the padding, the phantom feeling of legs twitching beneath her like memories trying to wake up. She didn't know when the moment would come, when she'd stand again, or how it would feel. But she knew, now, that she wouldn't do it to prove her worth. She'd do it because it was hers to take back. And this time, no one would throw her away for it. The first prosthetic limbs weren't elegant. They weren't chrome. They didn't glow. They weren't symmetrical or stylized. They were functional, lightweight synth-bio frames bonded with matte flex tendon bands, sculpted to Karian's muscle memory and neural feedback readings. The joints were exposed. The footbeds were textured for terrain traction. Nolan had pieced them together using a mixture of salvage components and custom-fit biopolymer molded from a portable casting tray. But they worked. Karian stared at them for a long time before saying anything. "They're ugly," she said flatly. Nolan smiled faintly without looking up. "So am I." She exhaled through her nose. "Fair." He finished locking the final adjustment clamp, then backed away a step. "They're not decorative. They're yours. They'll adapt to you, not the other way around." Karian leaned forward on her arms, watching her own legs she hadn't seen in over 2 years, click softly at the joint and shift with the movement of her hips. The sensors responded immediately. No lag, no delays, just controlled precision. It wasn't a miracle. It was work. She pushed herself upright, hands trembling with effort. Nolan stayed close, not touching, just watching. Try to shift your weight forward. Let the ankle sensors react to your balance, not the floor. Karian nodded, jaw clenched. The moment her weight tilted, the heel pads adjusted automatically, locking her into a neutral stand. Her core tensed. Her back arched slightly. The pressure in her thighs was sharp. Not pain, just unfamiliar strain. And then she stood. For the first time in over 2 years, Karian rose from the floor on her own. Her breathing stopped. Her hands flexed. She wasn't graceful. Her knees buckled slightly, and her calves didn't align perfectly. But she was up. She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding, then turned, slowly, carefully, toward Nolan. He didn't clap. He didn't cheer. He just nodded once. Steady, like it was exactly what he expected her to do. "You're standing," she whispered. I forgot what it feels like to look down at someone. That made him chuckle. She noticed it. His laugh was quiet, infrequent, but genuine. He stepped forward, hand extended. "You'll need help walking. The nerves need time to sink fully." She hesitated, looked at his hand, then took it. Their palms met, dry, warm, steady. He didn't lead. He simply moved with her. Each step was calculated. 1 foot forward. Balance. 2nd foot forward. Rest. Reset. After 20 minutes, she made a full circuit of the dome's interior walkway. Not fluid, not effortless, but unassisted. Karian leaned against the console table afterward, sweat on her brow, chest heaving. Her hands were trembling again, but not from fear. From adrenaline. From pride. Nolan handed her a cloth. She wiped her face, then sat carefully on the edge of the workbench. Her new legs bent at the knees, just like real ones. She stared at them, flesh-colored but matte, artificial but shaped to her. "Do they make you uncomfortable?" she asked. He looked at her. "Why would they?" "Because they're not real." He took a long breath, then sat across from her. "I don't care if they're metal or flesh," he said. "You're still you." Karian's throat tightened. "I used to be touched all the time," she said quietly. "Not because I wanted it, because it was expected. Every interaction was a trade." She looked at her palms, then back up. "You haven't touched me unless I asked. You never stared at my body. You never asked what I could give you." Nolan stayed quiet. "I don't know what to do with that," she admitted. "You don't have to do anything." The silence stretched. Then she asked, almost too softly, "If I asked to be touched now, not for a trade, would you?" He looked at her. Not hungrily, not nervously, just fully. "I would, but only if you want that, and only how you want it." Karian stepped closer. Slowly, her hands lightly touched his jaw, curious, uncertain. Her fingers traced the curve of his face. His stubble was coarse. His skin was dry from sun and machine oil, but warm, real. She whispered, "I want to feel something that's mine, not part of a contract, not to earn a roof." Nolan's hand rose, but stopped halfway. She nodded. He touched her wrist. Her breath hitched. It wasn't erotic. Not yet, but it was intimate. Electric, in the way genuine contact always is after years of numbness. They didn't speak again that night. He helped her lie down on the heated pad, draped the blanket over her gently. And for the first time, Karian didn't fall asleep guarding her body. She fell asleep inside it. Whole, breathing, reclaiming. The dome felt different that night. It wasn't the temperature. It was still warm, humid from the algae beds and low-cycle fans. It wasn't the light. The same soft amber strips glowed faintly overhead. It was the air between them. It didn't carry hesitation anymore. Karian had walked on her new legs for 3 days now, each time steadier, more balanced. The pain had faded into background pressure. The muscles in her hips and back were reawakening. Every movement felt earned, not gifted. She stood now at the center of the dome, arms folded over her chest, watching Nolan adjust a calibration line across the pump station. He hadn't looked at her yet. He knew she was there. He always did, but tonight he was giving her the space to begin something or walk away. She didn't walk away. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. He turned, eyes steady. "Of course. If I had never gotten the legs, if I had stayed crawling, broken, unable to stand, would you have touched me like that anyway? Would you have wanted me?" Nolan didn't answer right away. "I never wanted you because of how you looked, Karian," he said. "I wanted to be near you because you didn't ask to be saved. You just stayed. You rebuilt yourself in front of me. And I stayed because watching that, being part of that, meant something." She nodded once, small. Then she crossed the floor. Her steps were smooth, measured. No more dragging. No more crawling. Her bare feet tapped softly on the dome's polytile floor. She didn't wear the ceremonial silks anymore. Instead, she wore the wrap Nolan had made for her, a pale, asymmetrical drape, faded and practical, bound tightly over one shoulder, slid over one thigh, leaving her prosthetic bare. She stopped directly in front of him. "I don't want to be looked at like a partner, or a trophy, or proof of your compassion. You're not. I want to be touched because I want it, because I choose it. Then you should be," Nolan said, "but only if it's what you need tonight." She reached out. Her fingers slid up his forearm, tracing the dry tension of his skin. His hands were always calloused, work-worn, but he didn't flinch. "You haven't touched anyone since she died, have you?" "No. And you're afraid that if you do now, it'll break something open." He exhaled slowly. "Yes." Karian stepped closer. Her body pressed lightly into his, skin to fabric. She lifted her chin and met his gaze without fear. Then let it. Her hands reached for his belt, not urgently, not to provoke, but to undress him like a man, not a savior. Her palms slid beneath the hem of his shirt. His breath hitched when her fingers touched skin. Nolan's restraint cracked, but only slightly. He leaned down, cupped her waist with both hands, feeling the shape of her hips, the curve where flesh met synthetic. He didn't guide her. He didn't press forward. He held her. Karian rose on her toes, legs flexing with strength she didn't know she still had, and kissed him. Not with hunger, with intent, with grounding. Her lips were dry. His beard scraped her chin. The contact wasn't smooth, but it was real. When they finally pulled apart, she whispered, "I haven't done this because I wanted to end years." He nodded. "You don't have to give anything." "I'm not giving," she said. "I'm sharing." He helped her undress, gently, piece by piece. No rush. Her skin bore lines, old bruises, surgical scarring across her thighs. But he didn't react with pity or desire. He simply watched her, let her see herself reflected in his stillness. No shame, no reverence, just presence. Karian guided him to the padded sleeping mat. The dome lights dimmed automatically, triggered by the internal clock, but neither of them moved to brighten them. The dark gave cover, not to hide, but to make the world smaller, slower. They lay down together, skin against skin. No dominance, no routine, just two people discovering how to move again. Not mechanically, but with permission. Her touch wasn't confident. It was exploratory. His breath wasn't even. It was vulnerable. She whispered once, when his hand passed over the seam where her thigh met machine, "Do you still want me here?" He didn't answer aloud. He kissed her prosthetic just below the scar, then rested his head against her stomach. Breathing, grounding, choosing. They didn't fall asleep right away. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. What passed between them wasn't performance or gratitude. It wasn't a transaction. It was intimacy, chosen, earned, quiet. And when Karian finally closed her eyes, arms wrapped loosely around his chest, she knew that nothing about her had to be proven anymore. She had stood, She had spoken, and now she had been held. Not because she was fixed, but because she was whole. The wind outside the dome hadn't changed. It still swept low across Yarnith Vale, carrying dust and fine silt through the shattered basin roads and rust-split ductwork. The air still smelled faintly of metal and algae. But inside the dome, within the walls of repurposed irrigation filters and salvaged insulation, everything was different. Karian moved freely now. Her legs, sleek, polished, shaped to her, no longer clunked or buckled. They responded like extensions of her body. Every step was smooth, confident. No overcorrections, no pain. The synthetic muscle bands flexed when she climbed, crouched, stood barefoot in the nutrient trays beside Nolan, sleeves rolled, hands damp from stirring the algae beds. It had been 41 days since she first stood. She counted them quietly, not out of fear, but reverence. For what she'd taken back, for what had begun since. Nolan no longer slept across the dome. His mat had been rolled away. Now they shared the same sleeping pad, extended and reinforced, without walls, without ceremony. They cooked together in the morning, repaired cables in the afternoon, spoke little but touched often. There was no routine, just rhythm. That morning, Karian had woken first. She sat on the edge of the bed in silence, the wrap sheet draped across her back, one leg bent beneath her, the other extended, prosthetic catching a glint of early sunlight through the roof panel. Her hand rested against her abdomen. Flat, bare, still, but different. She felt it, deep inside, subtle but unmistakable. Not sickness, not pain, a presence. She didn't panic. She didn't flinch. She stayed still, absorbing the knowledge like warmth. She was pregnant. No one had asked her to be. No one had planted it as a duty or demand. There had been no contract, no registry, no genetic requisition. Just a night. Her choice. Nolan stirred behind her, shifting against the bedding. She didn't speak yet. Let him rise slow, blinking the sleep from his eyes, breath heavy with morning haze. She turned to him. He noticed something in her face, still unreadable. Karian, he asked. She nodded once. I'm carrying. He sat up, not alarmed, not surprised, just quiet. His voice was low. Are you all right with that? She nodded again. I think I am. He exhaled slowly. No smile, just focus. Do you want it? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. He reached for her hand instead, took it, held it firmly. I want you, he said. If this comes with you, I'll carry it with you. She looked down at their hands, then at his face. He wasn't saving her. He wasn't fixing her. He was with her. She rested her head against his shoulder, eyes closed. The dome was silent but alive. The soft thrum of nutrient pumps, the occasional chirp from temperature alerts, the low cycle of moisture extractors humming in the distance. Life in motion, quietly, steadily. Outside, the world still crumbled. But in here, Karian wasn't discarded. She wasn't breeding stock. She wasn't broken. She was standing, moving, choosing, and she wasn't alone. When the first flutter stirred deep in her belly, barely a touch, not even enough to call a kick, she pressed Nolan's hand gently to her skin and whispered, This is mine. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The warmth in his eyes said enough. They stayed there in the quiet, tangled together in skin and cloth and promise, until the light overhead shifted into noon. And for the first time in either of their lives, neither of them needed to run, or prove, or hide. They had already arrived, together, at enough, and no one would ever throw her away again. The dome no longer felt like a shelter. It felt like a home. Weeks had passed, maybe more. The days bled into one another in soft rhythms, tending to the trays, bathing together in the recycled wash basin, gathering sun through the cracked filtration panels, laughing quietly over poorly cooked algae cakes. Nothing was urgent. Nothing was watched. Outside, the world remained indifferent. But that morning, the air was still. No alarms, no repairs to run, no tasks left undone. Karian stood barefoot in the center of the dome, one hand resting lightly on her growing belly. She had wrapped her body in a soft flax cloth that clung lazily across her shoulder and hips, loose, warm, undone at the edges. Her hair had grown fuller, brushed smooth and tucked behind her ears, a long white curtain that fell past her shoulder blades. Nolan had just finished sealing a valve line when he looked over. He froze. She wasn't doing anything, wasn't posing, wasn't beckoning. She was just there, tall, balanced, luminous in the light spilling from the dome ceiling. The legs he'd built had become hers completely. They moved with her body like they'd always belonged. She was still scarred, still real. But she was radiant in a way that didn't need exaggeration. She saw him watching. He expected a smile or a tease. She didn't smile. She simply said, "Come here." He crossed the dome slowly, wiped his hands on the back of his shirt, approached her like approaching something sacred, not out of reverence, but focus. Karian took his hand, pulled it to her waist, held it there. "I want to be touched again," she said. "Not to claim anything, just because I can." He hesitated. "You're sure?" She nodded. "Yes, all of me, every part." He leaned in. This time, there was no urgency, no cautious tension. Nolan touched her as if learning her all over again, not with hesitation, but with respect for how far she'd come. She lifted her arms as he pulled the wrap away, letting it fall to the floor. Her skin was warm beneath his hands, textured with history, marked by survival, but soft now in ways he hadn't allowed himself to imagine before. He kissed her neck, then her collarbone. Her breath caught. Her fingers dug into his shoulders, not out of need, but response. Her body wanted this, not to give, to feel. She ran her hands over his chest, pulling his shirt up and over his head, brushing her lips down the middle of his sternum, pausing to inhale the quiet salt of his skin. He didn't rush, didn't press. He simply waited, offering his body like she had offered hers. When they laid down together, it wasn't frantic. It was undressed patience. He kissed her belly first, both hands cradling her sides. She arched toward him, not seeking friction, but connection. She pulled him up, kissed him full on the mouth, then guided his hand between her thighs. He followed, fingertips slow, attentive. Her prosthetic limbs twitched faintly, not from instability, but anticipation. He traced every inch of her, inner thigh to hip, hip to stomach, up the side of her ribs, until her breath grew uneven. She wrapped one leg around his waist, the mechanical calf flexing naturally, bringing him closer. When he entered her, their eyes stayed open. There was no performance, no gasp, no choreographed motion, just warmth, contact, skin against skin. She whispered his name once, then pressed her forehead to his. He moved inside her like he was trying to memorize the shape of her soul. Not to possess her, not to prove anything, but to be there, fully, quietly, again and again. Their bodies moved slow, locked in silence. She guided his pace, her hips shifting, her grip pulling. Every time he paused, she pressed closer. Every time she tensed, he held tighter. She whispered once, "Don't stop." He didn't, not until her body gave in, shuddered with release, so quiet it came as a breath against his cheek. Her eyes welled, not from pain, but from being present inside herself. When he followed, his body releasing with a low, broken exhale, she wrapped both arms around his back and didn't let go. They stayed like that, pressed close, damp with sweat, breathing in sync. Karian turned her face to his chest. Nolan's hand slid over her spine, slow. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The silence wasn't emptiness anymore. It was completion. And outside the dome, the world could end. Because in here, they had already begun.